Hey, welcome everyone to Pro Mindset Podcast. This is your host, Craig Domann. We have on our show today an Olympian, a sharpshooter. We have someone you wouldn't want to get in a gunfight with. Her name is Mary Tucker. She is currently living in the Czech Republic. She is a former Kentucky Wildcat, former West Virginia Mountaineer. She was a silver medalist in Tokyo in 2021, although the Olympics was called 2020. She went to the Olympics in 2024 in Paris. True?
Yes.
Yes. And she's going to be on our show today, and we're going to talk about mindset. Mary, thank you very much for joining Pro Mindset.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Okay, so unlike most sports where you're tackling somebody, you're hitting something, even in golf or tennis, you're not hitting someone else, but you have some type of like violence going on. Baseball, when you're swinging a bat, you're trying to hit the ball as far as you can, as hard as you can. And almost every sport I know, except for probably some track and field events like running, you have this like explosiveness going on. And the more fired up you can be, the more on fire you can be in your mind, the more intense you can be, a lot of times the better you perform. But as a 10-meter sharpshooter, sports shooter, it's just the opposite, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. We're definitely, surprisingly, one of the more calm sports. We do have the impact with the target, but we don't do it ourselves, really. We let our projectiles do that. So definitely a very calm mindset, but a lot of people differ, really. Some people do need to be really amped up, and some people need to be really chill, but we have a lot of flexibility in shooting.
Well, is it fair to say that their pre-event, pre-competition routine might be drastically different, but in the act of performing and shooting a gun and pulling a trigger, is it fair to say that everybody's got to be calm? Everybody's got to be in alignment with their heartbeat. Everybody has to have their target lined up.
Yeah.
Or can you be amped up and still shoot it?
You can still be amped up, but you can only be amped up in your mind. Your body and the rifle or, the shotgun or pistol, depending on what type of shooting you're doing, that does have to be very still, and your body has to be very calm. So you can amp your mind up to 100 as long as your body doesn't show it.
Okay, so let's talk about how do you divorce your mind and your body so that you can, everybody's mind, everybody's unique. Everybody thinks differently. Everyone prepares differently, competes differently. How do you separate your mind and your body, and what does that feel like in the moment of competition?
Absolutely. It's super strange because, a lot of people, even in shooting and in normal life, really want to have mind-body connection. It's all about helping your mind work the best with your body and your body work the best with your mind. And shooting is no different, but you have to know that they are separate things. And you have to really take a lot of time to learn yourself and do a lot of training of what are my body's strengths and weaknesses, but also what are my mind's strengths and weaknesses. And then once you kind of have those separated out, you can really capitalize on your strengths and really fine-tune and work on your weaknesses. And that's really the main way that the top shooters approach having that separation while still allowing them to work together.
Okay, so what is your greatest strength, both mentally and physically, and how do they work together?
Yeah, so my greatest strength physically is my lower body. My lower body is way stronger, which in turn means that my greatest strength is my balance. I have very good balance, and a lot of that does come from, my past sport, which was equestrian. You have to have a lot of balance in equestrian, so that's translated really well. And my greatest strength mentally is confidence, which again, from equestrian, you have to have the confidence riding the horse. I brought that directly into shooting. I have the confidence in myself, in my equipment, in my supporters, in my training. So then when I go to the match, I'm completely relaxed and confident in what I'm doing.
What is your weakness that you're working on right now in both of those categories, mental and physical?
I think my weakness physically is consistency. I, have fluctuated weights dramatically, being from in high school and then now in college and then now out of college. It's all been super different, with different training plans in college, different strength work routines, and then leaving college, finding a healthy eating pattern, a healthy cardio routine, that stuff. So greatest weakness physically right now is consistency and trying to find that sweet spot and exactly what I want and keep it there. And mentally, I think my greatest weakness, honestly, is enjoying the sport. You enjoy it when you first start it, and that's why you keep doing it. And then it kind of becomes like work. It becomes like a job, and it's like, yeah, I have to go shoot, or I have to go work out because I need to shoot. Like, I don't really want to. So I'm taking a break right now, getting myself right, really amping myself up. Like, I want to go back. I really want to do this sport. And then I'll be able to go back in and hopefully find that joy again.
Okay. What in your mind, you think about this a lot because it's about you and no one thinks more about you than you. And if you've lost the joy, which everybody does at some point in time, I've worked with NFL guys for 30 years, and at some point they hit that age, that time in their career where they made a little bit of money, got a little notoriety, and they're not as hungry as they used to be. And they struggle because it is a job. It's not, they don't have that 7-year-old energy they used to have. When you've thought about your situation, what do you think has caused you to lose your joy?
I think a lot of it has come from the fact that we don't stop, competing in national matches, international matches, and collegiate stuff all at the same time. That's 3 different circuits that are all running at the same time. In NCAA, we're a winter sport. Internationally, we're a summer sport. And in the US, we tend to split things fall and spring. So there's literally there's no off season, there's no breaks, no time to really take a step back, even just to practice. It's just competition, 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 And whether you're doing good or bad in those competitions, I feel like doesn't really matter so much as the fact that I'm just competing. All I'm doing is competing. Why am I competing so much? It's a lot of pressure. Every weekend is pressure. Every week is pressure. And I think that's really what drives it away from enjoyment, because it's just all the time difficult.
Let me be your coach just for a moment. If I was your coach, Mary, are you finished with your collegiate eligibility? Are you moving into where you only have like national and international events? Are you still doing some collegiate stuff?
I just finished my 5th year of eligibility in March.
Okay. So you now are moving into being like a professional
Yes.
in the sense that you're competing in these national and international events. What I would do is I would take a 30,000 foot perspective. When you look out of a plane window, things look a lot different than when you're on the ground. And
Absolutely.
I would look at my calendar and look at my schedule for 2025 and go, when do I want to peak? And what competitions do I want to do my best? I want to be ready. I want to be healthy. I want to be mentally on point so I can perform my best. And I'm building out a schedule regardless of what somebody says. I'm only going to participate in those events that allow me to be my best and actually enjoy it.
Yep.
Is that possible? Or do you have sponsorships that cause you to not be able to do that?
No, we can do that for now. Now that I am out of college, I have a lot more, leniency with not having to compete every single weekend and being able to actually take the time off like I am right now. And then I've already put together kind of a schedule for next year of, hey, here's my ideal, what I want to do. I've sent it to USA Shooting. Hopefully they, approve it. I've talked to my coach. We've kind of got a plan. And we, like you said, creating peaks, that's huge for us. We also really, really pay attention to When do we want to peak? When do we want to go down? Because, it's great to plan the peaks, but you also have to plan the downs and how to move those peaks and the lower parts higher, both of them. So yeah, we've done a lot of mapping out, and luckily, the next 2 years, at least in the sense of a quad, they aren't super full. There's a lot of time off, which is super different from last quad because of Tokyo being pushed back. We didn't really get a year off. So now we do. We get to kind of chill out. Everybody gets to find their happiness again and decide if they want to keep going or not.
Well, here's another question I have for you related to confidence and belief. When I was your age, I thought they were the same thing. But as I've dissected my athletes and even my own kids have played pro ball, I've discovered that belief is about who you are as a person and confidence is about what you do. So your belief goes with you, whether you're a daughter, a future wife, a future mother, a sister, all these roles we play, a competitor. You believe in who you are, and your confidence is about what you do. And you get confidence from reps, small wins, small successes, putting in the sacrifice, putting in the time, all those type of things. And what I see with athletes is the ones that don't believe in themselves 100%, they don't fail until it's something very important.
Mm-hmm.
So in their biggest moments, they just go, I wasn't myself. I don't know, I was just off. No, you weren't off. It shows your lack of belief shows up in those moments. So even one of my own kids was a 99.9er. He believed in himself 99.9% of the time. And it didn't show up until it did. Belief is a choice. You can choose to believe or not. I can choose to believe in myself or not. Confidence is earned. Confidence is putting in the time, putting in the hours, putting in the reps, working on your mind, working on your body, and working on your spirit so that you can be able to perform when you go to the Olympics or in Olympic trials to get to the Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, belief and confidence definitely are, like you said, two separate things. And I think they can be created or destroyed by very similar things, which is why people have a really hard time distinguishing the two. And it's also why people have a really hard time when something does go wrong and they can't distinguish it. They don't know what happened. It's just like you said, I don't know, I just wasn't there or something like that. It's just because it's something we also don't want to see in ourselves. So a lot of times, I coach young athletes, and confidence and belief are something that I have to talk to them over and over all the time. And a lot of them struggle with realizing that confidence isn't what I'm trying to teach you when I say do daily affirmations, talk to yourself positively, stuff like that. I'm trying to teach them belief in themselves and to get themselves to believe that they can do something well and it is like them to perform at the best. Confidence is what I'm trying to do through creating a training plan, talking to them about how their trainings went, what they learned, stuff like that. So it is different, but it has really similar effects. And it's really difficult if you don't know that those things are separate to start realizing that it is.
Well, one of the things that's super dope is if you believe in yourself, you could try something new that you've never practiced and you can still be good at it.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously you can't go to the top because you've never put in the work. But people that lack belief, they try something new, they struggle. Oh, I can't do that. It's like they want to quit before they start. They have this fear of failure that you don't have when you believe in yourself. So when you meet those people that they're just good at everything. No, they're not. They just believe they can and they'll figure it out.
Yep. And that's something that's really difficult to try and teach. It's not something you really can teach. It's something that you have to learn about yourself and learn by watching others as well. I'm one of those people who does always believe in themselves. And whether that came from my parents or riding or, whatever it was, when I started shooting, even though I was absolutely terrible at it, and people told me I was terrible at it, I had that belief in myself. And I was like, but I know I can get good. I know that I can put the work in. Like, I had that belief in myself that I knew I would be able to get better, to learn from it.
No, you're a testimony to that from the standpoint that you've performed at a high level in two different sports. And because you believe in yourself, you could go into a different sport and still do well. You just have to realize you're starting at the bottom. Because you don't
And be willing to learn.
willing to learn. Couple thoughts. One is that pro mindset, which you probably are not familiar with, is a principle and a concept that I've created and learned from my clients that have been super dope, super high achievers, the best in the biggest moments. You think about the Olympics, comes every 4 years. If you, on that one day, or maybe a couple days at the Olympics, you're on your game, you might wear a gold medal. If you're the best in the world and you have an off day, you might not medal. And the difference between medaling and not medaling is not very much.
Not just shooting, it's a very tiny amount.
Yes. So every edge you can get is going to help you. So what I do is I teach people how to rewrite their story. You have to reframe your story, which means you got to rewrite your past. And everything that's ever happened, like if I would ask you your top 5 failures, not asking, but if I asked you tell me what they are, then I'm going to ask you, what's the emotion attached to each of those things? And then how does it impact you now? And if it has a negative effect on you, we're going to go back and reframe it, rewrite it, and create a new emotion or no emotion so that you don't have that baggage with you. So I talk about with track people, speed people, what do they train with? What do speed coaches use for resistance to train their sprinters, typically?
Physically?
A parachute.
Bands.
Yeah,
parachutes.
parachute. So what happens is when you don't rewrite your story, you have a mental parachute with you.
Mm-hmm.
So when you go to a competition, you either have, another example is, I use the metaphor of, like it's a holiday season right now. You go to the airport, there's a lot of people. And there's probably somebody that's going for a month in Europe and they got a backpack. They're going for a month, but all they have is a backpack. And they're zigging and zagging and zipping through the airport. And then you got the family that's going for the holidays for 2 days, and they've got 10 suitcases and 3 kids, and they got a luggage cart, and they're going like 1 foot every 5 minutes because the airport's so crowded they can't get anywhere. So when you go to these competitions, do you have a backpack or do you have a luggage cart? And you really don't want either one. You want to go light. So anyway, with pro mindset, that's the one of the 3 foundational cornerstones is looking at who you are. So I would even ask you, if I asked you to define yourself, Mary, how would you describe yourself? What is your story?
First, I have to say it's really funny that, you use the luggage analogy because that's something we actually do use in shooting specifically. We say like, yep, we have, because our equipment takes up so many things. Like if you're not traveling with 3 bags that are all over 60 pounds, then you're not a shooter. Like that's kind of just how it is. So we always like to say, yep, all of our baggage is checked and not in our heads. That's not our problems. That's in the bags and there it goes.
No, I like that.
Problems there.
Check the legs.
Yep. But, for me, I don't know. I mean, defining myself is really difficult because obviously I am myself. So, there's a lot of things that I may not see the same way as others, but I see myself as a determined leader and somebody who, if they know it, when I know what I want, I'm going to get what I want because I know how to get what I want. And it doesn't matter what it is. I know what the process is going to take. I know how to make a process. I know how to follow it, and I'll get it. So Yeah, but I think also a little bit, which is probably why I was referred to you as well, is that I'm very different. I will do the process and I will get what I want, but it may not be in ways that anyone's ever seen it before. And I'm good with that. I like challenging people in more ways than one.
Okay, give the audience an example of where you created a process to become an Olympian for the U.S. in a sport that you didn't grow up competing in.
Yep. So that was definitely the main thing that really threw everyone off at first. So I started shooting in 2017. That's 1 year after the last Olympics. Rio was in 2016. Started shooting, shot semi-similar discipline without all the fancy equipment and stuff. Just, a basic gun and a target. Going for it. I was awful. Horrible. And, people weren't mean, but people were kind of like, hey, maybe you should, like, stick to riding, or maybe this isn't the sport for you. And I didn't like that. I was a very rebellious teenager, and I kind of was like, all right, I'm not going to do it with you. So I kind of went on YouTube, quit that club team. I went on YouTube, looked up, and I was like, all right, this video is of the top 8 people in the world right now. If I buy the same stuff as them and I stand the same way as them, I'm going to become them. So that's what I did. I trained every day. I trained really hard. I went to my first national match, ended up making the World Cup team at my first national match in 2018, and kind of just went from there. Went to every World Cup in 2019, went to every World Cup in 2020, made the Olympic team in 2020, went to the games in 21. College was a big part of that. It was kind of coming from like, all right, I started this, and now how do I get further? So I graduated school early, moved out to the training center for a year at 17 years old. It's crazy. Somebody who barely even knows the sport. I show up and everyone's like, who are you? I'm like, I'm Mary. I'm new. They're like, you just dropped everything to move out here? I was like, yeah, because I'm going to do this. Everyone's like, oh, she's crazy. She's like really crazy. Well, it worked.
So one major aspect of your story is the story you tell yourself in your
Mm-hmm.
own head. It's your
Mm-hmm.
internal critic. I call it a pocket voice. It's your internal coach. And it's the messaging that you have. It's you and you. And a lot of times it's the thing that holds people back. It's the thing that voice reveals what you really think about you in that big moment.
Absolutely.
So you obviously have a very positive inner coach. Like, hey, you got this. Screw everybody. You block everybody out and you focus. And you turn objections and challenges into fuel instead of like excuses. Because if you didn't, you wouldn't have done what you did.
And that went through all the levels. Every level. It was just like I would do one thing and somebody else would be like, but you can't do the next thing. I'm like, y'all gotta stop saying this to me because I'm just gonna keep doing it.
Yeah. So it would be really interesting to have like a snapshot of what you thought of yourself as a shooter when you first started compared to when you got the silver medal in Tokyo. And you're on the podium and it's like that had to be an amazing feeling that in less than roughly 4 years, you became one of the best in the world.
It was very similar. Actually, my mindset from when I first started and was that 16-year-old who had never done this before and was absolutely horrible at it to the person who was standing on the podium. My mindset was very similar. And I was very much, and I guess I still am, but right now I'm not shooting, so it's kind of hard for me to say. But I'm very confident in myself. It was kind of always, there's the confidence in myself, but there's always the want for more. And there's always You know, a lot of people can either dissect what they've done, and it can be really negative, and they go, okay, here's all the things I did wrong. Here's, you know, why it did bad, why it didn't go well, you know, all these things. And I learned very quickly from writing that that does not work for me. And so my mindset is like, okay, I have a list of things that I learned that I could do better, and I have a way to make it better. And that's what I'm always going to focus on. Even standing on the podium, I was like, yep, but I know things that I could have done better. And when I'm younger, I do some things well. I acknowledge that I've done things well, even though I'm not shooting the same scores when I was 15 versus getting that medal. I acknowledged what I did well and acknowledged what I learned and how I was going to capitalize on those things that I learned to make myself learn even more and do even better on that.
Your finish line keeps moving farther ahead. So, you know, for a lot of people, it's like, I just want to make the Olympics. I want to go to the World Championships or whatever it is. And they have that finish line, and they get to the finish line, and then they start coasting because they hit their goal. Where if you consistently move the finish line, so it's always farther down the track, you put yourself in a position where you're hungry, you still are striving, you've got a growth mindset of wanting to get better and better. And that's what it sounded like you did.
And, you know, two things that are very important with that is, one, I had a teammate in Tokyo whose goal was to make the Olympic team. And he did. And then he got there and he was like, oh, this is great. I'm just kind of here to have fun. We got home, and a month later, he's like, oh my gosh, why did I throw that away? Like, I actually wanted to medal. And now, you know, he's not going to make the team again. He's too old, or he's, you know, retired, doing all these things, having a family now. And it's like, wow, he realized that he never really sat down and asked himself, would I be okay with just going? Am I okay with just participating? And it's really hard to say yes or no, but there's always going to be that gut feeling of yes or no. And I think if he would have asked himself that, it would have said, no, I want to give my best effort, whether it's a medal or not, but I at least want to put the effort in. So he would have been able to walk away and say that.
There are two types of people in the Olympic Village, and those are the athletes, and that's where you guys stay. You've got the people that are there to win and do their best, and you got those that are there to party. It's both. Not everybody is competing to win. Not everybody cares. And it's like your friend, I mean, he realized it later. It would be super cool if he actually realized it before, right? One of the concepts that I created that I want to share with you you probably already do this. You maybe call it something different. But when you're on stage, when you're in the competition, before the game, before the event, I coach my people on creating a performance bubble. And a performance bubble is really organizing all the anchors and boundaries. The boundaries are the things that you do not want to let in. Fears, doubts, past disappointments, things people have told you, whatever the media said, whatever your peers have said, whatever your coaches said that might have, you know, she or he may have been frustrated and said something to you like, man, you're not working hard enough. You're not focused, and you don't let that come in. And then the things you let to come in are very fundamental. Belief in who you are as a woman, independent of what you do, which is your sport. Confidence in what you do in your sport. Those two get to come in, but they're not the same thing. And then all your piece, your preparation gets to come in, your practice gets to come in, your pit crew, which is your circle of people, whether it's medical people, whether it's psychological people, whether it's training people, it doesn't matter what it is. It could be your support system, your parents, whoever, sponsors, those vibes get to come in. Visualization gets to come in. You producing a movie in advance of the competition. As a producer, you get to pick the cast. You cast yourself as the star of your own movie in everything you do. And whether it's preliminary, whether it's finals, whether it's if they have different distances, different guns, whatever. And when a competitor does that, they're prepared more than anybody else. And here's what happens. They feel flow. They can get in the zone until a curveball is thrown at them. But here's the cool thing is you have an emotion regulator in your performance bubble. So if something comes up that shouldn't affect you, but it is, could be your inner voice, could be your pocket voice, you send it out. We have a bubble. You step into that bubble. And if something shows up, could be in the middle of competition, maybe unfairness. They change the rules. They change the order. Somebody does something. Maybe one of your competitors hits the bullseye every time, and she's never done that before. That doesn't get to come in because now you're comparing. You want to be so focused, you don't even care what everybody else does. So the gist of the performance bubble is a safe headspace where you can be your best in that big moment without the interference of anything else that doesn't serve you. And when I have my clients do that process, they show up way differently. What do you do in that regard?
I think, the concept that you're bringing is really similar to something that I do, but it's also a little bit different. So for me, I don't necessarily think of it as a bubble or a barrier or a wall, because sometimes a lot of people think of these things as barriers that need to be up, and they put a lot more effort into holding the barriers than actually doing what's taking care of the people that are inside the barrier. So, making sure, a cannonball's going to come through. I can't let it come through. They're really focused, hyper-focused on those cannonballs, those things that are going to come through the walls, the needles that are going to pop the bubble, stuff like that. So the way that I think of it more so is kind of like kids. And every time I say this, people give me crazy looks, but it works. And I kind of think of it as like, okay, there are good kids and there are bad kids. We all know those little crazy toddlers that are really well behaved and some that are really not behaved. So you have, different emotions that are those toddlers. So for example, if you have anxiety, the anxiety toddler is going to keep telling you, what's going to happen, but we don't know what's going to happen, and what if, all these what ifs are going to come in. So this toddler is going to keep coming up to you while you're trying to do what you're trying to do, and it's going to keep tugging on your shirt. It's going to cry. It's going to scream. Maybe it's going to throw things at you. Like, it's going to try to get your attention in any way. What you have to do is you have to give it something to go away, right? So usually I say give it a lollipop. Give it some sort of like, okay, I see you, but I need you to go sit in, that chair over there while I'm working. I need you to go sit for a couple minutes, and I'm going to do this. So, the toddler's occupied for, maybe it's occupied for the entire rest of the competition. Maybe it's only occupied for 5 seconds. Okay, 5 seconds is enough. It's enough to do what you need to do for those 5 seconds, and then give it something else. Kind of using those, and maybe there's so many of them, but as you grow as an athlete, you'll realize how, what does it take to get them to sit for longer? And what does it take for them to be occupied before you even start? Leave them out in the waiting room. They don't need to come in with you. So I think that allows you to accept a little bit more. And I feel like accepting the emotions is a lot better than trying to block them out. I see so many shooters, especially shooters, try to say, I can't feel angry. I can't get frustrated. I can't do these things. I can't think about bad shots. If you're telling yourself you can't, you're going to. That's just how it works. That's how the brain works. So you can allow yourself to think those things, but know what to do with it. Know what bucket to put it in, and know how to give it that lollipop to go sit down for a little bit. Because once you accept it, it's like, you don't hate me. Like I'm you're letting me come up to you. Well, this isn't fun anymore. If you're being so accepting and I'm not getting the reaction I want, I'm just going to leave you alone.
No
That's how it
question. I
works.
like that. I like that. The other thing that I coach my guys on is tapping into the 7-year-old mindset. So when you're 7, you think you can be anything, do anything. And you really don't care what people think. You don't look at everybody else and compare. You're not trying to be perfect. You're just exploring. You're experimenting. You're playing. It's not a job. It's playing. And you can't get into that 7-year-old mindset when you've got a lot of noise going on. And so in a way, we're seeing the same thing in different ways, with one exception, which is a very good distinction on your part. You're not going to push it away. You're going to accept it, and you're going to satisfy it so it goes away. And there's some things that you can do like that. But there's some things from my perspective of working with athletes, you've got to have some walls. But they're going to be porous. There's going to be some things that leak through it. With the things that leak through it, I'm going to steal your idea of the lollipop because it's so true.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that in the terms of those walls, it's really important to realize that there are walls, but those are the things you can control. The difference between things you can't control on the outside and things you can control. So you can put up that block. You can choose to not look at the scoreboard. You can choose to not look at the person's screen in front of you. That's something you can control. So that's okay. That's a wall you can put up because that's not going to seek you out randomly. You know, if somebody down the line is doing really well, we don't know that while we're competing. Like, we don't know how other people are doing most of the time. So a lot of people worry about, what if everyone else is doing really good? What if everyone else is doing better than me? We don't need that. So you can put that wall up there about that's external. That's things that are not things we can control. So we don't need to give them lollipops because that's not my problem. Those are not my kids.
Right. No, I like that. I like that. One of the other things that I think is very important is, I feel like there's 4 confidence busters. So when you have confidence, and confidence can fluctuate. You can go into a competition and you can feel really confident. Another time you can go into a competition and you can feel really confident, but you actually feel more confident than you did the last time. So confidence does vary. Belief has to be locked in at 100%. But the things that I see that kill, there's lots, but I broke them into 4 categories. Striving for perfection. Looking at what you don't do instead of what you do. Counting the points that you didn't score instead of the ones you did. There's only been one perfect human being. I'm not it. You're not it. You're never going to have a perfect, it just doesn't happen. So quit focusing on being perfect. The second confidence buster is the idea of comparison. Looking at what everybody else is doing. It doesn't do you any good. If your goal is to do your best, and if it's enough, you'll win, compared to focusing on winning. When you focus on winning the competition, you by definition have to compare. When you focus on being your best, you don't have to compare. So just focus on being your best. Don't worry about it. If somebody else has just an unbelievable day and you finish second, it is what it is. What really kills athletes is when they didn't do their best. And if they would have done their best, they would have won. That's a sucky place to be.
It
The
is.
third one is desperation. Desperation kills your confidence. Desperation comes in when you feel like it's slipping away. You feel like you should be at a certain place in the scoring. You're not. So you have to make it. You have to hit your target. You have to hit the bullseye. What does that do? Kills your confidence. Doesn't help you. Tightens you up. It destroys your mind-body disconnection, rhythm, syncness, whatever you want to call it. And the fourth one that kills your confidence is the scoreboard. And it's a subset of comparison. Because what do you do when you look at the scoreboard? If somebody's studying the scoreboard all the time, that's the person I'm not worried about. Because when it gets really tight, they will choke.
Mm-hmm.
The person that doesn't even know it's tight has no reason to choke. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I do think that those are really the broad categories, that everything can fall under one of those. So perfection is something in shooting that it's so, I don't know, it's a concept for us because so many people want perfection in shooting. It seems like if you are a perfectionist, you are drawn to this sport. And for what reason, I don't know, because perfection will never be achieved in this sport, ever. And it's crazy because people drive themselves insane trying to achieve perfection when our rifles can't even do it. Like, if they are viced down on the most stable thing in the world, they cannot do it. So why do people drive themselves crazy trying to do that? You can get close, and we're getting closer every day. Our sport, the world record is broken almost every competition. So it's always getting closer and closer and closer, but we are still 25 points minimum away. Like, people drive themselves crazy trying to do that. And comparison, I feel like comparison and score are really similar because, yes, when looking at scores, you are comparing yourself to everyone else. But I do think there's two ways to approach that because there are people who look at score in fear and there are people who look at score in anticipation. And I am one of the people who I like looking at scores because I like looking at how many points I can beat other people by. I like knowing that my name will be at the top. And that's just coming from that belief in myself and belief that my name does deserve to be at the top. So looking at scores is really interesting because you can do either. But a lot of people, in finals, so we have the competition where we can't see other people's scores, but then in the final you can. And it's getting announced every single shot. And there are very distinct groups of people in shooting who are competition shooters and finals shooters. Well, the competition shooters don't win. The finals shooters win. They just have to make it to the final. And then we're running with it. I'm a finals shooter. And I had to learn really a lot. I had to learn about myself to be able to shoot the competition because it was always, for me, I was always like, oh, if I could just make the final, I know I would win it. Every time I would make it, I would win it. And I knew that. But making it was really hard. So that's where what you said of the desperation, I have to do this because I know I can win if I just make it in there. And that's overtrying. Overtrying is a huge killer, especially in shooting because you can't overtry. At a certain point, you just have to let it go. Because if you try to control every single part of it, that's trying to be perfect, and it's not going to work. It's going to get worse.
Mary, let me interject something here. Go deep on the mindset characteristics of because you are one, a final shooter. And then compare that to the mental characteristics of a competition shooter.
Yes. The belief and confidence is big. those of us who are finals shooters believe that we are finals shooters. And it comes with the confidence also of, I have trained that final. I have shot it so many times. Good. Yes, I've shot it bad too, and that's great, but I learned from those. So I am confident in the way that I shoot it, and I believe in myself. And that's really what makes finals shooters. And those of us who end up on the podium, we believe and we trust our process. We trust what we're doing, but we're also able to let go. When we get to the final, it's fun. Finals are fun. I love finals, but I tell myself that. I tell myself constantly, I love finals. I love the pressure. So that when I get in high pressure situations and I get to the finals, my brain's like, oh, but we love this. You tell me all the time that we love this. So it's true. It comes. Those who are competition shooters, they want it, but they're scared of it. They want to make the final, but they're scared that they won't win if they do. They're scared that they won't make it. What happens if you don't? They don't have a plan afterwards of it. Those of us who are final shooters, it's like, yep, I win this final, which makes me do this. I have a plan of what I'm looking for. I have a goal to execute. Competition shooters, they have goals and they have ways of doing it, but they are so focused on trying to make that final instead of just, I know I'll make it, letting it happen. Final shooters let it happen. That's why it keeps happening for them, because they let it happen. Competition shooters are they try so hard, too much. And it's just such a hyper focus that it's almost unhealthy.
That is a great description, girl. I see this a lot in the sport of football. Commencement is a very understood word. Commencement means beginning. It's a new beginning. So when you graduated from high school, you had a certain population of your class. I thought they hit the finish line. And another part of the class, hey, we're just getting started. When you look at the competition thinkers compared to the finals thinkers, the competition thinkers are just wanting to get to the finals. The finals thinkers go through the competition because they expect to be in the finals.
Yes.
They train for the finals. They don't train for the competition. They train for the pressure. They train for the big moments. They train for the idea that they could lose and they're still going to be okay.
Yes.
Competition people that are commencement minded, meaning they just got to get there. It's like your friend that just wanted to get to the Olympics. He was a competition shooter, basically.
Mm-hmm.
In the bigger, broader picture of, like your journey, they're hyper focused. They put the pressure that's in the finals in the competition. Yes. So by the time they get to the finals and they make it, they have competition fatigue.
Yes.
They're already worn out. Their nerves are frayed. They're stressed out. So think about this for a second. Besides maybe expectations of a sponsor or, family members, if you don't make the finals, does your life really change?
No.
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 Does it change your value as a person?
Nope. And does it change if you win?
No.
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 No. I think that's something that's also very different between competition shooters and final shooters of the plan, and it's something that I also say that people think I'm crazy for, but you have to prepare for the consequences of winning. You have to prepare for the consequences of making the final. Because if you don't, you're never going to be ready subconsciously and you're not going to get there.
I like that. There's a responsibility that comes with winning.
Mm-hmm.
Some people honestly would rather place than win. They'd rather finish second or third or fourth than win. It's easier. There is a lot of responsibility when let's say, for example, you win a gold in the next Olympics. Is the next Olympics 2028?
It is.
Where's it going to be?
LA.
Oh my goodness, Summer Olympics. So you're a summer Olympic event. That makes sense. So LA, home country, you win in LA. I mean, you're going to be celebrated in this country.
Hmm.
A lot of people are scared of that responsibility,
Yeah.
right? They say they want it, but deep down, they don't want it.
Yes. And are you prepared, once you start winning something? This was something that I even learned after Tokyo, is that coming in now, I made the last Olympic team. So Olympic trials for before, there was a whole new pressure because it's like I've won trials before. Now I'm expected to do it again, not only from myself, but also from everyone else. At the Tokyo trials, I was a random person. I was just some girl who had a crazy dream and a crazy drive who thought she was going to do it. So when I did it, it was like, okay, that was cool. But now, for the Paris trials, it was like, wow, these people expect me to win because I've been winning for the last 4 years. Are you okay with that? Are you okay knowing that everybody's watching you? Knowing that everybody does expect a certain score, and knowing that when you do win, people aren't going to be like, wow, you won. People are going to be like, yeah, we expected you to win. Are you okay with that response?
Well, think about your situation. You go to Tokyo and you win a silver. You go to Paris and you don't medal. And you may have in your mind that you're going to go to LA and win the gold, or you
Yes.
may not. Okay. You don't have to. You can just try to make it like your friend did.
No, I will. I will win.
Okay. So I just want to announce, ladies and gentlemen, the gold medalist for 2020, Mary Tucker. No, for real though. I mean, it's like part of the performance bubble is the concept of detaching from expectations, outcomes, results, recognition, disappointments, all those consequences of your performance.
Yes.
It's called let's live in today's moment. Let's live in this moment. Let's not live into the future. What did every one of those things? All those consequences are future.
Mm-hmm.
You know, whether it's money, whether it's recognition, whether it's fame, whether it's interviews, whether it's employment opportunities or sponsor opportunities or whatever it may be. Or on the flip side, if you don't win, it's people saying things like they make up excuses.
Yeah.
They're all lies. But they make them up for you.
People love to tell me what went wrong with my match. They love to walk up to me and go, oh, here's this random thing. I'm like, okay, that's cool. I didn't know that. That's crazy.
Yeah. No, that is, I mean, okay. So let's kind of transition into competing in the moment. How do you be fully present when you're in the moment of competing? I'm not talking about carrying all that luggage to the competition. I'm not checking your gate, all the different things you might have to check with your equipment. Maybe whatever mental framework or mental routine you go through or practice routine you go through before the competition. I'm talking about you're in the moment. It's your turn to shoot. How do you bring all the stuff that's out there to to almost like a happy place to where you can just, it's you and what you're doing.
Can I say something controversial?
Go for it, girl.
I let go of it. I let my focus go. I let everything go. I rely on what I've done in training. I know that I've put the work in, and I know that I've done everything that I possibly can. When I was up on that line in Paris, yes, there were nerves. Everything was going on. It's the Olympics. You have the pressures and everything. The second that I stood up there, it went away because I let go of it. And I was like, cool, this range, there's some colors around here. It's interesting. There's a lot of people in these stands. I wonder if I can try to tell who's related to who. This music is not very good. So sorry. And I was like, I feel good. I feel like I'm supposed to be here. And even when things went wrong, my gun malfunctioned, I had to come off the line, get a new one, come in halfway through the match with it. I still went back up on that line. Yes, coming back off, I was upset. I cried a little bit. I was by myself, so I was like, there's a lot of thoughts going on. I've done a lot of things, all these thoughts are coming in. But the second that I went back up on that line, started over. Nothing. First shot was a 10-9, back with a new gun, completely coming off the line after crying. That's a perfect shot in shooting. First shot out. And I looked back at my coach and I was like, yep, I'm good. So in competitions, I tend to just let it out. And a lot of people, try to micromanage themselves. And that's, in my opinion, it doesn't work for everybody, and I know that. But for me and for a lot of shooters, it doesn't work. You can't micromanage yourself because then you're not paying attention to what you're actually doing. If you're fighting your brain, you're not paying attention to everything else.
I like that. That's called being in the zone, by the way. Because when you're in the zone, none of the stuff bothers you.
Mm-mm.
You don't care who's in the stands. You don't care who's watching. You don't care what the consequences are of the competition.
I want them.
You're just playing.
Yeah.
You're competing. You're performing.
I've done this so many times. This is the same target, the same pellet, the same gun. I'm standing the same way. Okay. What's new? So scary. Cool. Now I get to just take in all these cool new things around me. Wow, look, there's the Olympic rings over there. Sick. I have matching ones. Cool. So I just try to have fun up there. And I'm able to.
Okay, so I want to challenge you on something. You said that you're wanting to recapture the joy.
Yes.
You just told me the answer to doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Just let it go. Just let it go. You went from nowhere to the Olympic podium in 4 years.
I can do it again.
You could take off a year and still do it again.
Exactly. I believe
off,
that I can.
I know you can. You could take off 2 years. You almost could. It's like give yourself a break. It's like, yeah, if you got sponsors and you're making money that way, it's a different story. But it's like you don't have to grind for the sake of grinding.
I'm not scared of taking breaks. I used to be. There was a time where I was like, oh, I should practice a lot. And then I took a forced break when I had surgery on my knee. And I came back and I shot the national record right after surgery. And I was like, we're good. I can take breaks now. Like, this is all fine. So now taking breaks, I can come back. I believe I can come back.
Well, there was a Paralympian that I had on my show that went to the Olympics. He's been there like 5 times. And he has no arms. And he was bow and arrow.
Archery.
And archery, thank you. And he had to take off because his hips were arthritic. So he shows up at the Olympic trials and had not shot for like 6 months. And he won it. But in his mind, he visualized it. And he felt in his identity, he deserved it. And then he just went and did it when he needed to do it.
Absolutely.
So I think there's certainly merit to reps and like just practice time and all that stuff.
You have to build the foundation.
Build the foundation, but once you're competent, it's more mental than it is physical.
Mm-hmm.
You've already done it. It's not an issue of can you, it's an issue of can you when you need to. It doesn't mean, and if you can when you need to, doesn't mean you got to do it all the time. Okay, young lady, I'm going to give you the mic here. Any final thoughts on people that are listening? Share something with them that they wouldn't expect. You shared before that, hey, this might be controversial. It wasn't controversial to me. Might have been controversial to somebody to let it go. But sometimes that's how you do your best. Is there anything else that you have in your mental toolbox that might be against the grain, so to speak, that you would like to share?
I think something that maybe not everybody can relate to, but something that surprises a lot of people when I'm talking about my brain is that I was diagnosed with autism my freshman year of college. And I believe that that is something that has helped me incredibly in this sport and in life in general, because maybe I don't understand things the same way as everyone else, and maybe things are a little more complicated, but things are also more simple. I see it how it is, and I learned about myself in order to be able to even work with myself. You have to kind of put yourself outside your body and say, how do I work with this person? Because you need to know. And then you can put yourself back in and try those things. So learning about yourself is something that's really, really important to me, and really that I try to tell people, but also explore everything that's different. Some people, maybe they only listen to your podcast, so they're way into it. They, you know, think everything the same as you. Sometimes that doesn't work for people. There's books out there that sometimes people read and they say, well, this one book said I had to do it this way. If it's not working, don't do that. Read as much, listen to as much as you can, and pick things. There's not a set in stone way to do things. My favorite book that I've read over and over is something that a lot of people haven't ever even heard of. A lot of my ideas are very similar, but there are also things in it that I'm like, yeah, I don't quite agree with this, so I use this instead. And that's okay. It's okay to not fall into any box. Make your own.
Make your own box. What's the name of the book?
With Winning in Mind by Lanny Basham.
No, I agree with you. Pro Mindset is a phenomenal framework, but there's a different version for everybody. And you have to figure out, how do you do it? What's going to work best for you?
Yep. And
But
in
the
the trainings too. Sometimes people need a lot of cardio. Sometimes you don't. Don't stick with somebody if they tell you can only do cardio. If it doesn't work for you, then that person, and they're not willing to change their mind, why are you still there?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. The 2028 gold medal sharpshooter for the U.S., Mary Tucker. Mary, thank you very much for being on Pro Mindset today. You had some awesome perspective. You were struggling with your health, so I hope you get well soon. And I want to thank you
Thank
very much
you.
for being on the show today.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Hey, it's Craig Domann, the host of Pro Mindset Podcast. I want to thank you for listening or watching today's show. And you can catch us every week on the normal social media platforms like YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and all the listening podcast platforms. I hope you enjoyed today's show. And more importantly, I hope you gained a pro mindset insight. Please be sure to rate and review Pro Mindset Podcast. And I look forward to catching up with you on our next show.